operative Spectre of the Officio Assassinarium waited in the side chamber of the Blackstone Fortress, finally being able to open the sealed orders he was given by the Grand Master of Assassins not long ago. The orders were confusing. He was sent to the Blackstone Fortress to pick up a prisoner, but the Officio Assassinarium was in the habit of making corpses, not prisoners, and the fact he was having to pick up a prisoner at all was intriguing. Curiosity was always one of Spectre's shortcomings, that and his fiery temper, but that was never so much an issue in the heart of battle. But his curiosity was finally sated as he opened the sealed orders and started reading on the sealed data slate. The prisoner's name was Helena, and she was once the daughter of a medium-ranked noble here upon Terra. Her story was bland, generic, but above most of the stories upon Terra, she had a good birth, wealth, mild prestige, for her family owned one of the largest shipping companies upon Terra, bringing in foodstuffs from the far reaches of the Imperium to satisfy the needs of the homeworld. However, it seemed that, like himself, curiosity was what got the best of Helena. Helena had a high-breed education and spent many additional years studying all aspects of Imperium, and that, it seems, was her major problem. Somewhere in her extensive education, it seemed young Helena had learnt about the existence of Xenos. That in itself was alarming, to learn about such things upon Terra. But what she chose to do with that information was the source of her current incarceration in the heart of the Blackstone Fortress. It seemed that young Helena, upon learning of the existence of Xenos, also learnt about the Imperium's attitudes towards the Xenos out in the stars, the necessary attitudes required for humanity's survival, but it seemed young Helena did not see it that way. She called for all Xenos lives to matter. She called for an end to genocide, an end to discrimination and persecution, an end to the wars and hostility between humanity and the various Xenos races in the stars. She called for tolerance, for compassion, for cooperation. These ideas were heresy, and the fact that she managed to acquire a small band of followers and preach her beliefs openly, and the fact that she was able to preach her heretical vision upon the streets of Holy Terra itself, was another lapse in security that Spectre suspected would need to be addressed by the various councils upon Terra at a later date. However, that was for another time. Spectre continued reading the data slate. Upon getting wind of Helena's little operation and her little cause, members of the Inquisition immediately responded into action. The Ordo Hereticus and the Ordo Xenos together launched a joint operation to completely obliterate Helena's group, and they did. Inquisitorial stormtroopers and assault teams smashed into the hideout where they had been staying and killed everyone, burning their bodies and torching the building. To ensure maximum efficiency, the entire block was purged. Several hundred innocents died, and amongst all of the heretics preaching their Xenos-loving nonsense, but that was a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. And so it was. All of her Helena's followers were killed, except herself. Spectre understood why she was kept alive. Where she got her information was a very valuable thing to know. Perhaps there were other Xenos sympathizers upon Terra. Perhaps there were still copies of restricted Xenos texts upon Terra. You couldn't know until they interrogated her, which, reading the report, Spectre noted they did, mercilessly, for days and days upon end. However, it seemed that the Inquisitor in charge of her interrogation, a Inquisitor Victoria, had a bit of a twisted sense of humour, as she had prescribed some unorthodox interrogation methods, in addition to the more conventional ones familiar to any inquisitorial or officio assassinarium operative. It seemed that young Helena had been strapped into a chair, her eyelids removed, and forced to watch for days and days upon end videos showing the truth of Xenos in the Imperium. These videos were normally used to induct members of the Adeptus Astartes into the ranks of the Xenos hunting group, the Death Watch. However, in this case, Inquisitor Victoria felt no hesitation in using the videos to educate young Helena about the truth of Xenos. So it was, for 7 days, without end, Helena was shown atrocities and horrors that would break the mind of even an Astartes to the point of wrath. But with an unmodified human such as Helena, instead of breaking her to the point of righteous fury against the Xenos, it just broke her instead, breaking her mind and fracturing her spirit. Watching Drukari torture and violate Imperial citizens, watching members of the Adeptus Astartes and Imperial Guard be cut down by the scything talons of the Tyranids, watching Tau firing squads execute Imperial sympathizers and dissidents upon captured and conquered worlds, watching Eldari cruelty, Orc savagery, and the mysterious time-bending powers of the Hurud. It broke her, and so it was. Helena sat alone in the cells of the Blackstone Fortress, with no eyes, weeping and moaning in the dark, the same chant that she began her little righteous crusade with. Xenos lives matter. Xenos lives matter. Spectre smiled. It was a brutal approach. However, he could not deny the artistry behind it, although that still did not question why he was there, now able to pick up the prisoner. If it was a matter of execution, then surely any member of the Blackstone or the Inquisition could have put a bolt round to her head at any time. Until Spectre read the last line of his report. Subject 247241. Helena Duquesne. Sentence. Transferred to the Officio Assassinorium Evisor Project, to serve as operative of the Officio Assassinorium and to redeem herself in service and glorious death to the God Emperor of mankind. There it was, thought Spectre, turning her into a Evisor, a cruel, cruel fate indeed. No doubt he imagined that the Grand Master would read her report, and once she was finally trained, implanted with neural explosives and the rage-inducing drugs, she would be sent off to some Xenos world, perhaps to assassinate a Eldar Farseer or a Tau Ephriel. That did not matter to Spectre. All that mattered was that he picked up the prisoner and sent her back to the appropriate temple, as was his duty. Though deep down, he could not help feeling a strand of sympathy for the poor woman who is now about to become a monster. However, such things were far above Spectre's pay grade. So, he put away the data slate and began walking deeper into the Blackstone, collect his prisoner for transport.